Aaron Burr was arguably the most ambitious man in the early national period. This man, who longed for his name to be etched in history and took any means to do so, defied the law. In the last years of his vice presidency under Thomas Jefferson, from 1804 to 1807, Burr conspired with numerous individuals to create an independent country, which included much of the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. After graduating from Princeton at a young age, Burr became an officer in the Continental Army at the age of 19. Burr's involvement in the Revolutionary War led him in contact with Alexander Hamilton, and the two men clashed almost immediately. Perhaps it was because they were too similar. Both were from New York, served as soldiers in the Revolutionary War, became lawyers afterward, and possessed a deep passion for politics. After narrowly losing the presidential election of 1800 to Thomas Jefferson, Aaron Burr was made vice president. Since candidates at this time did not have running mates, the man who came in second place, Burr in this case, was given the role of vice president. Throughout the election of 1800, but especially in the House vote, Alexander Hamilton supported Jefferson, which enraged Burr. Burr's anger towards Hamilton caused him to blame Hamilton for his losses in the elections. Brooding tensions between them came to a head on the morning of July 11, 1804, when the two dueled in Weehawken, New Jersey. The outcome of this duel was Burr's most well-known claim to fame. Specifically, he became known as the man who killed Alexander Hamilton. Burr's time as vice president was littered with missteps, which caused him to fall out of favor. Jefferson and Burr were on cordial terms when they started working together, but the idea of Burr's past issues constantly lingered in the back of Jefferson's mind. During the election of 1804, Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans selected George Clinton as the running mate instead of Burr. After the rejection, both as running mate to Jefferson's re-election campaign and loss of governorship of New York, Burr was further determined to use his ambition to gain power, even if it meant creating his own country within the country that had countlessly rejected him. Once Burr was released from his vice presidential duties in 1805, he left for a tour of the western frontier to see it for himself. This tour sparked the earliest rumors of Burr's conniving and suspicious actions. Burr made his way down to Virginia to visit Blennerhassett Island. Securing a relationship with the Blennerhassetts, as Burr often used his charm to do, would serve as a crucial stepping stone in his conquests in the West. Additionally, Burr was in discussion with Anthony Merry, a British minister. Burr figured that the only way to gain money was to put his plan into action through the assistance of foreign powers, and who better to help than the British that were still stinging from the loss in the colonies. In the end, the Foreign Office from England provided no response to Merry, which served as a response of its own. Burr was so desperate for money to help concoct his plan, he contacted the Spanish government in hopes of gaining money and support. Burr's allies made it clear to the Spanish government that Burr had no plans to invade New Spain, which is something they would be very concerned to do. However, this was not 100% true. In the winter of 1805, Burr finally returned from his western venture to New York. Burr proved to be even more dependent on Blennerhassett as his plans evolved into actions. Thanks to his ally, Burr now had a headquarters for his plan. By the fall of 1806, full-fledged rumors were now circulating about the suspicious activities of Burr. A letter from May of that same year, delivered to Burr's friend James Wilkinson, finally put Burr's conspiracy into words. The letter had to be decoded with a specific cipher that detailed Burr's course of action. Thanks to this letter, Wilkinson now had proof that Burr was attempting to conspire, not just against Spain, but the United States as well. Both were grounds for treasonous charges. Initially, President Jefferson had not taken the reports of Burr seriously, as there had been many far-fetched stories of Burr conspiring in the West. However, Jefferson became increasingly concerned about Burr's whereabouts, as no one knew exactly where he was at this time. Once these suspicions were confirmed, Jefferson began to take an assertive stance. After meeting with his cabinet, all government officials in the western territories were warned to watch Burr's every move for possible treasonous action. In December of 1806, Burr's plan was about to take shape. Conspirators, ready to follow Burr, gathered at Blennerhassett Island under the cover of nightfall on December 10th, ready to venture westward to help Burr attempt to secure a western empire. However, the militia of Ohio had different plans than Burr. Seizing much of Blennerhassett's land and Blennerhassett himself, the militia put a stop to this phase of the plan. Aaron Burr, however, was nowhere to be found. Burr's downfall and eventual capture came down to his carelessness. This was revealed when Burr sent one of his slaves to deliver a note to his fellow conspirators. After recognizing his slave, the revealing note tipped off the governor to Burr's whereabouts. Eventually, an Alabama sheriff recognized Burr as he made his way to Florida and arrested him under the penalty of high treason against the federal government. Burr was now to be tried in Richmond, Virginia, for treason against his country, where he had once been a public servant. Burr's trial would become the most discussed and crucial incident of that time. Evidence should have played a key role in the treason trial. However, the accessibility of specific evidence would not be available for the jury, whether it be to support or deny Burr's guilt. In addition, several key witnesses did not testify in Burr's trial. The main argument of the prosecution was that Burr had taken treasonous action on Blennerhassett's Island in order to deliberately create a rift in the United States. However, the counter-argument of the defense was that he was not physically present when the actions of high treason took place on Blennerhassett Island. In order to be convicted of high treason, Burr needed to actually participate in an outright act of treason, not merely conspire against the United States. The lack of Burr's presence at Blennerhassett Island created doubt that he was involved in a direct act of treason. None of the chief witnesses could place Burr at the island, and this further took credibility away from the prosecution's argument. Moreover, the Constitution does not provide exact specifications of treason. This allowed Chief Justice John Marshall to interpret treason broadly. Furthermore, high treason was considered to be enacted when an individual aided the enemy during wartime. Since it was not wartime, this aspect was counted out entirely. Burr's life was on the line based on the definition of high treason. Burr was also accused of levying war. Burr's defense team, specifically defense attorney William Wirt, presented definitions and explanations of levying war. Typically, this concept required a traitor to conduct direct, forceful action against the United States. Once both sides provided all evidence, the jury began deliberation on the case of United States versus Burr. The jury came to their decision on September 1st of 1807, stating that Aaron Burr was proved not to be guilty under the indictment by evidence submitted. Aaron Burr and his defense team won the trial, but he was not completely in the clear when it came to accusations against him. Burr still faced violations of the Neutrality Act, which he was accused of committing within the scope of the actions of the conspiracy itself. During the trial, Marshall decided that Burr had violated the Neutrality Act, but was allowed to post bail. This violation of the Neutrality Act did not garner as much attention as his accusation of high treason. Therefore, it was not as widely discussed in the public sphere. Although Burr had few allies left, he did not expect certain individuals to turn against him. Many of his former allies, including Blennerhassett, sued him after the trial in an attempt to restore their financial situations and reputations. In order to avoid the wrath of those who were upset with the outcome of the trial, Burr fled to Europe in order to keep a low profile away from the United States. Aaron Burr's ambition shone through in all actions he took during his life. Whether it be to further himself as a member of the Continental Army, as a lawyer, or even a politician, ambition was a common thread that ran through his attempts to gain power. The visibility of his ambition was found within the drastic measures he took. The incredibly intricate planning of the entire conspiracy demonstrated ambition and zeal Burr used to achieve ultimate power. Burr's actions were a mark of high treason, and he should have been found guilty for his master plan against his country. By designing a scheme to turn citizens against the United States, solely to put himself in a place of power, Burr proved to himself as a traitor. Additionally, Burr was willing to let outright war occur, whether it be his own army versus the United States or foreign powers, in order to advance his own ambitions. Only a villainous individual would put the lives of others on the line for selfish motives. His ambition for power obstructed his view of what was right. The jury should have seen Burr's actions as unforgivable and punished him accordingly for treason.